When you think of the South Bay, you think of hot rods or surfing. But there was an automotive plant in the South Bay, in Wilmington, a Ford factory churning out Model A's. And there was another auto manufacturer here. Well, almost here. South Bay adjacent, anyway. It's the story of Powell Manufacturing Company today on PCZ TV. PCZ TV. The Powell brothers, Hayward and Channing, started Powell Manufacturing Company in 1926 at a facility in Compton, California, which is South Bay adjacent. Yeah, that Compton. They started to make battery eliminators, what we would now call AC adapters, and also making box-style table radios typically of the 20s. The Powell's electronic business lasted until 1932, and then they turned their attention to motor scooters. They churned out Model 39 and Model 40s, which actually became pretty popular, especially with the Hollywood crowd and with local hot rodders. And for more history of hot rods and motorsports in the South Bay, take a look at some of these videos. Now, ironically, they weren't the only LA-based scooter manufacturer. Crocker was there also with their Runabout. Then, war broke out, and Powell moved over to assist with wartime production of their scooter. The Powell Streamliner model was used by U.S. airborne troops during World War II, but I haven't been able to find any images of them actually using it. If you know of any, do let me know. But I did find the Cushman scooter, and I suspect that Powell was used in a similar role. But we do know that the Powell ended up in post-war Japan because the Powell Streamliner model, the model used by the airborne troops we talked about, was copied and served as the basis for the original Fuji Rabbit scooter in June of 1946, albeit using the tail wheel from a Nakajima bomber as the front wheel of the scooter. But I digress.
And now for something completely different.
After the war, Powell continued to manufacture scooters, but also added a light motorcycle to the lineup. This would be a bellwether for the firm as they started to look towards motorcycles and away from scooters. And when the Korean War broke out, they switched back to military production, and that was the end of scooter production. From this point on, Powell would focus on motorcycles. In the mid-50s, they would also take a pretty bold new step and enter the car business. Now, this is what they'd be competing with in the era. It's a pretty bold move indeed for a scooter company. But they launched the Powell Sportswagon, a sportsman's car, available both in pickup truck and station wagon body styles. They ended up selling about 1,200 new vehicles, advertised as America's first car, produced to sell well below $1,000. And built like a battleship, drives like a sports car, rides like a sedan. That $1,000 works out to be around $11,000 in 2023 dollars, or about half of what today's cheapest vehicles cost. Now, how did they do this? By repurposing, also known as refurbishing. You see, under its new body, every Powell Sportswagon was a 1941 Plymouth. Now, I can't seem to find out exactly which one, but details. During the refurbishment process, each Plymouth was stripped down to a bare chassis, and the stripped chassis were then inspected, aligned, repainted, and all the worn-out parts were replaced. The inline flathead six-cylinder engines were also sourced from Plymouths, ranging in vintages from 1940 to 50, and engines that passed the inspection were then rebuilt and installed into the reconditioned chassis. The body's styling was dictated more by the desire to avoid the cost of expensive tooling like, stamping dies, and as a result you may describe it as blocky, sort of like a Minecraft design car. Except for a fiberglass hood, workers formed the rest of the body from heavy sheet steel and simple bending fixtures. Now, to be fair, they were an earlier innovator in SUV designs, and one novel feature of the trucks was a sliding cylindrical drawer that retracted into the passenger side rear fender. And as the sport wagon was pitched as a sportsman's car, that drawer was suggested for storing fishing rods. In the 1960s, the company gave up on their automotive intent, reorganized as Powell Brothers Incorporated, and, in an ironic twist, went back to their roots and manufactured the Powell Challenger trail bike. During this period, the company also relocated to a larger facility in Firestone Boulevard in Southgate, California. Hayward Powell died in 1978. Channing Powell retired, and the company officially went out of business in April of 1979. Now, of late, there's been renewed interest in the Powell brothers and their $1,000 car and SUV. In 2020, Matchbox released a die-cast model. According to the Powell Sports Wagon Registry, 1,020 pickups were made, along with 150 station wagons, of which only 11 are reported to still exist. Their factory, located on 2914 North Alameda Street in Compton, is now, according to the Google, filled with miscellaneous small companies. And the Southgate factory is now a Line X truck accessory distributor. And that's the story of the South Bay Adjacent's second automotive manufacturer. If you've enjoyed this automotive history of the South Bay, perhaps you might enjoy these other automotive-related South Bay videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And now the most interesting bit, my disclaimers.
Bye.